The Can-Do Reactor, a triumph of Canadian engineering. For over 30 years, it's been a safe and reliable source of electricity for the people of Ontario. And yet, questions about safety remain. Questions that Ontario Power Generation would like to address with the facts.
First, a little background. To understand how to make reactors safe, it is important to understand how they work. Nuclear power may seem like mystifying magic, but the basic concept behind it is really quite simple. In fact, a nuclear reactor is much like a kettle in your kitchen. The idea is to heat water to produce steam. It's exactly the same principle found at coal or oil-fueled power plants.
But instead of burning coal or oil to produce steam, in the Can-Do reactor, water is heated by the energy released from splitting natural uranium. Ordinary water is turned into steam. The steam spins a turbine. The turbine then drives the generator, which produces electricity.
The key to the process is unlocking the energy in the uranium atoms. When uranium atoms are split by tiny particles called neutrons, they release their heat.
The uranium fuel is formed into pellets and placed inside sealed metal tubes. These tubes are welded together to form a fuel bundle, which is placed inside a large tank called a calandria. Just one of these bundles contains the same amount of energy as 400 tons of coal or 2,000 barrels of oil.
But to release the power of the uranium, you need a moderator.
In Can-Do reactors, a special kind of water called heavy water is used as the moderator. It surrounds the fuel bundle and slows down the neutrons so they are more likely to hit and split the uranium atoms. The heavy water also has another job. As it is pumped through the reactor, it heats up. It's then piped through a boiler where it turns ordinary water into high-pressure steam. That steam spins the turbine that drives the generator. To minimize the risk of accidents and their possible effects, Ontario Power Generation's Can-Do reactors are designed, built, and operated using a strategy called Defense in Depth. That means even the safety backup systems have backups.
Two of the most critical safety features OPG's Can-Do reactors have are a containment vessel and a vacuum building.
In the remote event of a reactor malfunction, whereby there would be a surge of steam pressure containing radioactivity, none would be released into the atmosphere. The radioactivity would be sucked directly into the vacuum building, where it would then be flooded with water, reducing the steam pressure and containing the radioactivity.
Even though Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island are very different in design and safety features from our Can-Do reactors, those incidents have been studied and examined by OPG. While similar accidents cannot happen at OPG's nuclear reactors, we have learned from these events and improved our designs, safety standards, and procedures. OPG's Defense in Depth strategy also includes its operators.
They are carefully selected and trained. Operators in training must work for about 8 years under the direction of a licensed, authorized nuclear operator before they can qualify for their own license. And to obtain that license, operators must also pass stringent examinations set by the CNSC, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. That's the federal agency that regulates and monitors Canada's nuclear industry. Our commitment to training also extends to every single person who works at one of Ontario Power Generation's nuclear power stations. Everyone from the clerical staff, electricians, and mechanics to the operators.
OPG is proud of its systems and its people. And you don't just have to take our word for it. CNSC has its own independent inspectors on site, and it constantly monitors every phase of our operations.
As well, Ontario Power Generation reactors are given regular checks and inspections by international agencies. Our goal is to consistently meet or exceed every independent standard. Those high marks also extend to how we handle radioactive waste. We store used fuel bundles safely and securely. First, in special concrete pools where they cool off. Eventually, they will be transferred to a dry storage container. It's made of steel reinforced concrete that's welded shut for an airtight seal.
Meanwhile, OPG is working with the people of Ontario, the provincial and federal governments, and our colleagues in the Canadian nuclear industry to identify a long-term waste management approach that is socially, environmentally, and financially acceptable.
And to make sure that there will be no financial burden on future generations, Ontario Power Generation is setting aside hundreds of millions of dollars from its revenues. It's put in a special savings account that will be ready for the day a long-term storage approach is agreed upon.
At its heart, operating nuclear power stations isn't just about technology, it's about people.
Our nuclear plants produce the majority of the electricity that the people of Ontario are demanding. It's a contribution we simply couldn't do without. And we do it responsibly and safely while protecting the environment being one of the highest priorities. A commitment that's been recognized by the International Standards Organization with its highest possible certification, ISO 14001, for our environmental performance.
But of course, it's not just a question of meeting standards and winning awards. We live in the community. It's our environment too.